unpopular truth here, guys, is if you want to hit the ball harder, using as much muscle as you can without muscling the ball, technique is going to make a lot more sense. But technique alone doesn't power your swing. What's going on, guys? It's Coach Steven with 15 Points of Tennis. And if you haven't noticed already, different coaches have very different perspectives of teaching the swing. And one of the most commonly recurring debates is whether your swing should feel absolutely effortless. Is there some basically way to swing easy and get massive amounts of power? Maybe like Federer or sometimes Kyrgios, those guys just look so relaxed yet the ball goes 1,000 miles an hour. Or should you feel a lot of muscle and strength and be putting a lot of effort into your shots? Maybe when you think of a Serena Williams or Rafael Nadal with that powerful grunt. Now, based on your personal experience, you may have already decided which philosophy is better, but don't these two viewpoints seem very paradoxical? So the definition of being relaxed is your muscles being completely free of tension. So in theory, you're most relaxed when you're sitting on your couch at home in front of a TV. And by that same definition, if I were to even lift my hand in the air or pick up a dumbbell or even move my racket around, now I'm activating some muscle. And therefore, isn't it really impossible for me to be relaxed? Now, by that same token, we've all had days where we've put more force into the ball with less of a result. And we've had days where our swing just felt buttery smooth and the ball just, boom, is just flying off the strings. And that's assuming you were the same exact player from one day to the next with pretty much the same technique. So I've seen both sides taught and I've taught both, but it can be a vicious cycle. For example, I've told students to use your muscles. Come on, hit the ball with strength. Then the students will be like, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But then I'll be like, no. All right, now you look tight, now you look stiff. There's no racket head speed. Just relax a little bit. Then the students will be like, then I'm like, no, now you look weak. There's no stability at contact. Right? So what we're trying to do here in this video is get you to the promised land of what I call relaxed but strong, okay, which I think is a magical feeling a lot of us tennis players are searching for. So again, before we begin, appreciate you guys supporting the channel and subscribing. Let's crack into it right now. Now, if you follow your favorite player on social media, you'll see some technique and some strokes, things like that. But even more of the time, you'll see these insane, crazy workout routines. And it's no coincidence why Rafa Nadal has that huge left bicep, or why Federer's right forearm is about twice as big as his left side, or Wawrinka, his core is as thick and sturdy as a tree trunk. And you even look at the women's side, be it Serena, Andreescu, or Osaka. I mean, these are very, very strong, powerful girls. And the unpopular truth here, guys, is if you want to hit the ball harder, you've got to get stronger, and there's no other way around it. And not just tennis. I mean, look at baseball. All the batters, right? It's about hitting home runs. All the batters have extremely strong upper body, lower bodies, and golf. Well, a lot of the guys actually on tour might be slight and skinny because the guys on tour win with more accuracy and precision. The golfers who specifically the long drive contestants are all very, very muscular and all hit the ball way further than the guys on tour. So what about technique? Like, I'm huge on technique. Most of this channel is dedicated to that, right? And that would include things like, the angle of your wrist drop, right? Your elbow position, the tilt of your shoulders. That would fall under the umbrella of technique. And that's incredibly important and makes your swing very efficient. But technique alone doesn't power your swing. It's actually your muscles that push in a kinetic sequence that accelerate your kinetic chain. Right? I know I always say this, but like, your joints don't move by themselves, right? Racket head speed doesn't create itself, right? Your wrist and your elbow or joints, it requires muscles to move them. So whether on your swing you have more forearm on your swing, or more bicep, or more body on your swing, at the end of the day, it's all muscle. Now, some muscles are actually used to create more motion, and some muscles are actually more stabilizers, right? That give you that strength at contact, even though they're not moving a whole lot. But again, it's all muscle. And I think maybe one of the best way to think about strength as a whole is, let's say if you were to shadow swing in the air, that's pretty much like doing a bench press. Like at the gym, you're doing a bench press with just the bar. It's very easy to keep perfect technique with a 45-pound bar. But once you add 3 45-pound plates at each side, now that 300 pounds plus, it's hard to keep that same elbow position, and actually that the increased weight is going to knock you off balance. It's going to throw you off balance. And the same thing happens when you're playing tennis. Okay, when you start to hit the ball harder with weight, and when your opponents start to rip the ball at you, now there's weight on the ball. If you don't have the strength, most players, they get knocked off balance, and it's very hard to keep that same technique. I mean, just imagine baseball, right, where the bat is much heavier and the ball is much heavier. So even if I gave a 5-year-old, the greatest, perfect Roger Federer technique, they'd still get overpowered by a much stronger player.
Должен исполнять швейцарец для того, чтобы победить Надаля. Вне зависимости.
So strength is undeniably important, but we all know and seen guys who are very, very strong that either one, hit the ball soft, or two, get extremely tired after about 5 minutes of playing. And oftentimes these players look very tight and very stiff and do what we call muscling the ball in a bad way. And these players lack what's called flow, which is the other half of the equation. Now, flow is this great little catchy phrase, but it's not some skill or that you can't develop over time, right? And I know it's vague, but think about flow as either, muscle coordination or muscle control, right? And when we talk about muscle control, think about the kinetic sequence. Ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Everything has to fire one after another, right? Shoulder, elbow, wrist. One time, actually, at the club I was at, they brought out this huge, professional speed gun with this big monitor, and everyone was excited. Everyone wanted to see how fast they can hit their serve. So all the kids lined up, trying to hit this hardest serve of their life. And if you were to guess what happened, everyone's serve god awful. Everyone was spraying serves out, because what happens is when people try to hit the ball harder, okay, instead of keeping that flow of their muscles, shoulder, elbow, wrist, now they're firing everything at the same time like that, which produces a kinetic malfunction instead of a smooth chain. So back from the beginning of the video, when I talk about the feeling of relaxed but strong, you have to, when you hit the ball, you feel, although you feel for the most part pretty relaxed, your body's never 100% relaxed, because there's always some muscle activating at some point in the chain, but never all your muscles at once, right? You need to feel that flow of muscles. When one muscle's activating, a lot of times other muscles are relaxed, okay? But everything has to work in sync, but when you hit the ball, you should still feel a lot of muscle at the same time you're relaxed. And that's where we're going to break this down in the next section. So we're going to review some really common areas of muscle control where players screw up, right? And this actually, when you think about it, it's not necessarily technique related, okay? And you'll see why. So first of all, you've got to break your swing down into all the parts, right? Like even shoulder, elbow, wrist. You have to be able to isolate every part. So this is my shoulder right here, elbow right here, and then wrist right here, the pronation, right? If you can't break your swing down in parts, then you're going to be hitting with all your muscles unconsciously instead of consciously. Okay, that's for starters. Now, I'm going to start with the first one when we talk about the kinetic chain. I've mentioned this before, but the goal is to be able to culminate all the energy at one single point in time, right here where the ball is, right? All the muscles in my body need to culminate the energy right here. And that last piece of firing of the chain is your forearm right here, which moves your wrist, and the grip in your fingers, which grip the racket to stabilize right here at contact. What a lot of players do is, if you squeeze back here and fire your forearm back here, fire your wrist back here, right? I don't need the speed back here on my backswing. I need the speed at contact. If I fire back here, there's going to be nothing left at contact. I need to fire this last piece of the chain right here, right? So we always tell the students, you don't accelerate before contact. You've got to accelerate at contact. You've got to feel the squeeze with your grip. Again, the squeeze with the grip, it should feel fairly relaxed, not super relaxed so the racket flies out of your hand, but more relaxed than right here it squeezes. You have to wait till the very last second. You should almost feel the ball in your strings before you squeeze, because that power needs to culminate at that one single point in time, which is your contact point. Okay, now some players get the contact point down really well, but what some players do, even though they might squeeze well at contact, they tense everything else up. And one of the big muscle control errors is to actually tighten your chest and your neck as you're squeezing with your forearm and your grip. So everything up here should feel relaxed, and you should feel the power coming from the hand. Again, it takes a lot of muscle control to just feel this instead of this. Okay, but a lot of times players who tense up their chest like this, you see how this is tight? A lot of players will actually catch the ball a little bit late here, and actually the ball will fly long a lot of the time. You have to learn how to keep this upper neck and chest area relaxed, and again, the chest pulls back here, and then you just let this right here fire through and snap through, but you should feel the power coming from right here. So again, that takes muscle control. Okay. Now, again, I know we're going fast with these guys, and I'm not getting all the details right. I could dedicate separate videos to each and one of these, but I want to just give you an idea about some of these common errors. One of the things that I've struggled with many years growing up as a junior was my rotation, because getting turned and rotating through the ball is great. But what some players do, and what I did, is when I was hitting, again, my hips need to fire here and let the energy transfer to the upper body to snap. What I would do when I was younger is my hips would be accelerating through the contact point when I was using my hand. So it looked like this, right? You had two things firing at once. So my hips were pulling through my contact and throwing my whole swing off, right? I mean, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was just subtle. But that subtlety creates it doesn't create a kinetic chain that flows. What you need to learn how to do is fire your hips and keep your hips very quiet at contact, right? And then feel the hand. So it takes a lot of muscle control. Now, the funny thing is your hips can be rotating at contact, rotating with my unit turn like this, but they can't be firing at they can't be pulling at contact. So there's a difference between like this, what I showed you here, this, versus, see, that. So I can go, right here, right? Where my hips are actually quiet even though I'm rotating. So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated for different shots and why muscle control is not that easy. Alright guys, I want to talk you through the hips. Something I've struggled with for many years, my hips still pulling at contact when instead they should fire before contact and let my hand take over at contact. Now it's going to throw my swing off. You're going to see after this shot, this next one coming up, just moving my hips slightly. It's very subtle, but moving my hips slightly, it's going to get me to pull off my shot, like that one right there. And again, and one more time, watch the hips moving slightly at contact. It's very hard for me to aim. Now I'm going to keep my hips very quiet at contact and let my hand take over. And when my hand is isolated at contact, I can have much more control over the racket face and be much more precise with my aim. So guys, actually when you pull with the hips like this, if someone rips the ball at you and you're deflecting pace and you're using more body to hit the ball, it's not the worst thing in the world. But it's going to definitely hurt your ability to generate pace and hit with precision. Okay, now I'm actually going to rotate my hips. Even though I'm rotating my hips at contact, I'm going to still keep them very still. So I'm rotating my hips with this footwork, with this unit turn. I'm jumping in the air, but when I make contact, it's actually still. So it's a little bit of an optical illusion, and we're going to show you how to do this exact footwork in a future video. Because my hips are still, I can have full control over my racket face and even hit with low margin. Now, the last one I want to discuss very briefly is when you're moving on the court. And a lot of players, who do a good job getting low like this, they're working their legs hard. A lot of times people actually tighten up their lower back like this. And what happens is, even though I'm working my legs hard and moving, your lower back makes your upper body very stiff, and you have a hard time unit turning, because when you need to unit turn, so you have to be very relaxed in order to unit turn quickly. If you don't unit turn quickly, you're going to be a lot of times late on your preparation. I mean, think of yourself like a boxer, boom, 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 right? So with that upper body extremely relaxed. So if you see some people when they volley, they might do a good job getting low, but you have to keep this lower back relaxed. So here, 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 instead of, you see some players, right, and they're tight when they're volleying, and they can't get this unit turn quick. So working your legs while keeping the right muscles relaxed, again, it might take a little practice if you've developed some bad habits. This is a point from last year to demo this, and you're going to see a split step, but he's going to tighten up his lower back. See where that circle is? Even though he gets low, that lower back tightness creates a slow unit turn. Again, one more time, slow unit turn, then he gets punished. I want him to be able to relax his upper body, yet work his legs hard, especially keeping that lower back relaxed. And hopefully he's going to take a little bit of stress off that area and move with a lot more flow and smoothness. So as you guys realize, this is not that easy. And I think once you understand the concept of using as much muscle as you can without muscling the ball, technique is going to make a lot more sense, right? And this whole issue with, muscling the ball versus flow, man, I personally had a lot of trouble with this. And even to this day, my brain is tempted to compensate with more muscle rather than more feel, right? Rather than feeling the ball better, feeling the racket better. Now, when we talk about everything being in sync, when we talk about flow, and again, this will warrant its own video, but you have to feel one piece pull the next piece through. So the weight transfer right here pulls the body through, which pulls the arm through, which pulls the wrist through. Okay, you got to feel this flow, and you feel your fingertips at the very end. Weight transfer, body, arm, hand, and then you got to get the eyes and the head in sync right here. To imagine like you're hitting a ball, right? And so that's that flow that you feel when you hit. And I think one of the big awareness things, one of the key concepts for me is that help me with flow is always feeling. You always want to feel the racket tip at every point in time. Once you lose the weight of the tip in your hand, like this, right? Now you're gonna, without a doubt, be muscling the ball. And this is what happens for players who don't start at a young age. They don't develop this feel quite as well. Now, when we talk about feeling the tip, right? What makes this actually really hard, let's say in a match, is all the different variety that comes to you. Balls that are high, low, fast, hard. Some swings you're going to actually drive with more legs. Here you get to feel the tip, versus some swings you'll use more, bicep and wrist snap. Here, like on a put away, and you still have to feel the tip for different swings and different speeds. And so that's what makes this insanely difficult. It makes this a nightmare when you have to adjust your swing to all these different balls. Now, I can swing slow and feel the tip, or I can swing fast and still feel the tip, but I always have to feel the tip regardless, okay? Now, sort of to tie everything together, guys, for this concept, it's kind of why your swing can look very similar to someone else's, but I want to ask you, how are your muscles being utilized? This is your muscle utilization. Do they flow? Is it in sync? And any great kinetic chain takes a lot of refinement. I mean, think about, maybe the best kinetic chains of all time, maybe Steph Curry's jump shot, or Barry Bonds' ability to boom, turn on the ball just in a split second. In golf, Ernie Els, they call him the Big Easy because his swing was just so silky smooth. And maybe when it comes to tennis, you think of either Pete Sampras' serve or Federer's forehand, right? Now, these guys are constantly refining that chain, and these are some pretty coordinated guys. But remember, it takes a level of coordination plus strength, so you've got to have both. Now, me personally, I'll never reach the level of a Roger Federer, but like if I can gain proficiency, I believe you can too. So when you go out and practice this, even right now, think about which side of the equation do you need? Do you need more flow, or do you need more strength? Okay, still practice, still get perfect technique, but if you check the boxes, technique, flow, and strength, I guarantee you're going to be hitting the ball a lot cleaner, a lot better, and everything is going to start to come together. All right, so I appreciate you guys. This video is kind of everywhere a little bit more so, but I wanted to drive home this topic. Thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll see you soon on the next episode.